But let's transition back to the NBA and let's talk about the ongoing beef between the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies beat the Golden State Warriors 133-119, and it was some chirping going on after the game. And this time it was between Klay Thompson and Dillon Brooks. Again, remember last week it was Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks. This time it was Klay Thompson and Dillon Brooks. This is Klay Thompson's quote on Dillon Brooks. He says, when he retires, I don't think anyone will ever talk about Dillon Brooks ever again. Dillon Brooks' response was, it's friendly trash talk, but I just hold a lot of real estate over there in San Francisco. So the Grizzlies and the Warriors are at it again. And remember last week, I came on air and I was talking about the feud between Klay Thompson and Dillon Brooks. And well, it was last week, it was Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks. I'm sorry. This week, it's Klay Thompson and Dillon Brooks. So last week, when I talked about the feud between Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks, the one thing I said was, if anything, Dillon Brooks should have respect for Draymond Green, because the role that Draymond Green has on the Golden State Warriors is the same role that Dillon Brooks has on the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, they are great defensively. They are the enforcers on their teams. Like, they are usually, like, Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green, opposing teams, when they face the Warriors or the Grizzlies, they do not like Dillon Brooks or Draymond Green. And similar to Draymond Green, Dillon Brooks isn't the star in Memphis. That would be Ja Morant. Dillon Brooks isn't even better than Desmond Bane or Jackson. So I said last week that you would think Dillon Brooks would have more respect for Draymond Green. Draymond Green is a 4-time NBA champion. He's also won an NBA Defensive Player of the Year award as well. And I believe that outside of last year, those first 3 championships that the Warriors won, Draymond Green was the driving force defensively for those Warriors basketball teams. And I said that he should have more respect for Draymond Green. But Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green, even though Draymond Green is better than Dillon Brooks is, they are closer when it comes to overall ability on the basketball court. Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks are closer, like as players. They're kind of equal. Like I would say, again, Draymond Green is better than Dillon Brooks, but Dillon Brooks, him talking about Draymond is not the same as him talking about a Klay Thompson. And now he's chirping with Klay Thompson. Let me remind Dillon Brooks of who the hell Klay Thompson is. Klay Thompson, for his career, he averages 20 points per game on 45% shooting from the floor. The man shoots 42% from three-point range. He is a part of the greatest shooting backcourt in NBA history. And here are some of Klay Thompson's accomplishments and accolades. He's a 4-time NBA champion, 5-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-NBA third-team player, and he was on the NBA All-Defensive second team in 2019. And he's one of the greatest shooters in NBA history. Now, let's look at Dillon Brooks, shall we? And let's compare him to Klay Thompson. For his career, Dillon Brooks averages 15 points per game on 42% shooting from the floor. Not bad. But has Dillon Brooks ever been on the same level as a Klay Thompson? Absolutely not. I would argue that before Kevin Durant arrived in Golden State, when the Warriors, remember they won the championship against the Cavs in 2015, and they went back to the NBA Finals. The year they went 73-9, I would make a legit argument that Klay Thompson was one of the best defenders in the NBA at that time. Before his injuries, Klay Thompson was one of the best defensive players in the NBA. We all give Klay his credit and his flowers because of his shooting ability. But Klay Thompson was a tremendous defender in the early part of those Warrior dynasties. Also, I need to remind Dillon Brooks again. You were talking about Draymond last week, but what can you say about Klay? Klay is an even better player than Draymond Green is. You way out of your league here, Dillon. And I like Dillon Brooks. I really, really do. I believe he has tremendous upside, and he's a great contributor on that Memphis Grizzlies basketball team. I believe that you need a Dillon Brooks on your team if you're going to compete for an NBA championship. The same way that you need a Draymond Green on your team if you're going to compete for an NBA championship. The same way you need a Dennis Rodman on your team if you're going to compete for an NBA championship. But I need to remind Dillon Brooks that Klay Thompson was the second best player on a team that won a championship in the Golden State Warriors in the 2015 NBA season. There will never be a time where Dillon Brooks will be a second option on a championship basketball team. Never. And I know I'm knocking Dillon Brooks here, but it's the second time in 3 weeks where I see him chirping at the Golden State Warriors. And I know this year the Warriors are struggling on the road, and I'm going to get to that here in a bit. But it's something to be said for a team that is considered a dynasty. It's something to be said for a team that has won 4 NBA championships in the last 10 years. I mean, I can't say enough about the job and the organization that the Golden State Warriors are. And I keep hearing Dillon Brooks keep chirping at Draymond, at Klay. And it's like, bro, last year, even in the NBA playoffs, en route and in their route to becoming champions, the Warriors beat your Grizzlies, Dillon. They beat your Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I know you lost Ja Morant in that series. And I do believe that if Ja Morant never got injured in that second round playoff series between the Grizzlies and the Warriors, I believe that the Grizzlies could have pushed the Warriors to 7 games. But if was a fifth, we all be drunk. Come on now. If was a fifth, we all be drunk. And Ja Morant got injured, and the Warriors beat the Grizzlies in 6 games. Now, a few years ago, the Grizzlies did eliminate the Warriors in the play-in game. They did. Klay Thompson didn't play in that game. It was just Steph Curry. But last week, it was Draymond and Dillon Brooks. This week is Dillon Brooks and Klay Thompson. Dillon, let it go, bro. Let it go. And I'm hearing Kendrick Perkins, ESPN, NBA analysts, and I love Kendrick. Kendrick does a great job for ESPN, and he knows his basketball. He's forgotten more basketball than I know. But he's talking about how the Grizzlies and the Warriors are a rivalry, and I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about, Kendrick? How can they be a rivalry when more times than not, when it matters the most, the Warriors beat the Grizzlies? Yes, in the month of March, the Grizzlies have beaten the Warriors twice in Memphis. But when it matters the most, in April or May, the Warriors have gotten the better of the Memphis Grizzlies. Kendrick, this ain't no rivalry. A rivalry to me is 2 teams who battle, who go back and forth. That's a rivalry to me. In college football, for years, people were talking about the Ohio State and Michigan Wolverines being a rivalry. And Ohio State won like 10 straight, might be more, 10 straight matchups against the Michigan Wolverines. And I had to tell Wolverine fans, this is no longer a rivalry. I don't give a damn about what happened in the 1920 BC. I'm talking about right now. This is no longer a rivalry. When I think of a rivalry, I think about, even though they only won one playoff series against the Warriors, I would say the Cavaliers with LeBron was more of a rivalry than the Grizzlies are. When LeBron was in Miami, the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs were more of a rivalry than the Warriors and Grizzlies are. The Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors are not rivalries at all. When they play each other, yes, it's intense. But the Golden State Warriors already have something that the Memphis Grizzlies are striving for, and that's 4 NBA championships. Before you start chirping at Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, Dylan, can you at least win one championship? Can you at least get one? Win one championship. And then I would understand the trash talk. But until then, please take a seat. Take a seat, Dylan.